Oopsies. Oopsie. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's video. Trying to do as much as I can to make it a special one today. In case you can't tell, we are doing a Mr. Rogers video, all special today. This shirt and this lovely mug were given to me by my aunt as late Christmas presents. Well, let's start with how he started his show. This isn't exactly how I'd like things to go today, but hey. It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor. Would you be mine? Could you be mine? It's a neighborly day in this beauty wood, a neighborly day for beauty. Would you be mine? Oh, could you be mine? I have always wanted to have a neighbor just like you. I've always wanted to live in a neighborhood with you, so let's make the most of this beautiful day. And since we're together, we might as well say, would you be mine, could you be mine, or won't you be my neighbor? Won't you please, won't you please, please won't you be my neighbor? Howdy, neighbor. Alright, today might be a little bit longer, but it is a special. I wanted to do this video anyway, but with the passing of Mrs. Rogers this past week, I thought it would be a good idea. In my Mr. Rogers mug, I have Mr. Rogers' only hot drink. He said, you put it back? Yeah. Oh, thank you. And he said in an interview that he didn't drink coffee or tea. He drank hot cranberry juice, which he heated up in the microwave. Not as bad as you might think. It kind of reminded me of that movie, Blast from the Past, Christopher Walken, Alicia Silverstone, and Brendan Fraser, where Christopher Walken's character likes hot Dr. Pepper. I had that once by accident when the sun heated up my soda bottle. The cranberry juice is definitely better than hot Dr. Pepper, let me tell you. Anyway, I got my son here. Say hi, Jack.
Hi.
Because we've been watching Mr. Rogers a little bit, because what used to be called Family Communications has become Fred Rogers Production Company. There you go. We'll do that song a little later, buddy.
Okay.
And they also produce a show called Daniel Tiger, based on one of Mr. Rogers' characters in his program. Like I said, leave me a little longer today, maybe. I don't know. We might be able to shorten it. I kind of hope. I wrote down notes. I was gonna try to make a script or something, but I couldn't get to it. I couldn't really get it done. So we're gonna talk just a little bit about Mr. Rogers and the impact he's had on people. And I want to start by saying, a lot of people say, "Oh, Mr. Rogers is a sissy. He's what?" No, he's not. He's helped a lot of people. In fact, you want to know Mr. Toughman himself, Mr. Batman himself, Michael Keaton, played Batman, Beetlejuice, a whole lot of other movies, started as a stagehand on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Yeah, Batman used to work for Mr. Rogers. Isn't that cool, buddy? All right. There's a variety of videos that I got and articles I got my information from. One is a Sun Sentinel in November of 1997. A Sun Sentinel article by Candace Weldon. His memorial video, which at the time was only broadcast on Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and Canadian public broadcasting. Which the reason for that is because that's where he was. That's where Mr. Rogers was from, Pittsburgh, and he got his start actually in Canada. We'll talk about that a little bit later. I'm going to also try not to talk so fast, because Mr. Rogers would take his episodes and make them last 5, 8 episodes long to get his story told, or to get the subject done with, because he didn't want to rush through, so he could help the kids learn. And there was a Dartmouth College. He spoke at the 2002 graduation commencement address. It was shortly after that he would get diagnosed with stomach cancer, have an unsuccessful surgery, and he died shortly thereafter in February of 2003. Actually, let's see, another little note I have. Mr. Rogers was born on Tuesday, March 20th, 1928, and died Thursday, February 27th, 2003, at 74 years old. His dear wife was born the same year and the same month, born on Friday, March 9th, 1928, and she died Thursday, January 14th, 2021, at 92 years old. And since then, she'd handpicked Tom Hanks to play Mr. Rogers in the documentary. It's a documentary, like a recreation of history. There's also another one. There's one called "Won't You Be My Neighbor." Won't you be here? That is an actual documentary about Mr. Rogers. The one with Tom Hanks is called "The Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood." When Mr. Rogers died in 2003, I was a freshman in high school, just finishing up my freshman year. Let's see, let's get that. It's funny because when I started going to a Christian school in 8th grade the year before, and one of, I guess, Mr. Rogers' favorite scriptures, where'd it go? Was Psalm 121. Was the first scripture, whatever recitation I did. You know how kids they do reciting. They hold up sometimes signs of what they're saying at school. Well, we did a psalm. And that was the psalm we did. I remember, actually, if you would remember to pray for this woman, Mrs. Belmore. She was my first Bible teacher at Grace Baptist School. She was a good friend. I should say her sons are my best friends, and she's not too healthy right now. So if you could. Well, she's doing better, but if you could keep her in prayer. And I want to share the scripture that Mr. Rogers liked with you. I remember it well, but don't ask me to quote it verbatim, so I'll just read it to you. I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel does not slumber, shall not slumber, nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. We're not busting ghosts right now, buddy.
Okay.
The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth, and even forevermore. I like that. It was that verse 5. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. That's the verse I think I had. All those years ago. And I still have my yearbook from that year. And my friend Matthew Ouellette, who was the associate pastor's son and who's now the pastor, and Colin Krabby made this page up. And this middle section here is a song that Matthew Ouellette wrote, which we'll be doing here in a minute. But some little info on Mr. Rogers, some which we'll branch off and talk about here in a little bit. But first, a commencement written by Colin Krabby. Mr. Rogers was very important to all of us. Through his popular PBS TV show, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, he taught us many lessons, like trying to find the good in everything and everyone. And even though none of us have ever met him, we will miss and cherish our memories of him. Thank you, Colin. Thank you for that. I'll try to tag you later so you can watch this. Mr. Rogers had about 25 sweaters, which was worn over the years of his program. And his mother actually knitted all of those. I get, sometime in the past, before the show, during the show, she knitted all. Mr. Rogers' mother made all those sweaters. Isn't that pretty cool, bud? Yeah. Mr. Rogers spoke French as well as English. Makes sense. He had a program in Canada, which we'll go back to. He wrote all of the songs for the show. He wrote about 200. Still impressive. 200 songs Mr. Rogers wrote. And I love Mr. Rogers. And when I was a kid, I found his songs, some of his songs, hard to sing and follow. Because when I've learned recently, I have autism and ADHD and dyslexia and all that stuff. Growing up with that, I needed the straightforward, regular meter of songs. And Mr. Rogers has a kind of a jazzy, irregular tempo, irregular meter feel, which, for what he did, as a friend of mine, Mr. Ostis, pointed out this week, for what he did, his kind of talking, giving information while singing, was perfect for what he did. And I still enjoyed his songs, and I still love them years later. And Mr. Rogers was the father of 2 sons and 2 grandsons, one which was born shortly before he passed away. The trolley traveled about 5,000 miles in 1 year of production. That's a lot. I don't even travel that much in a year now that I work in town. I love it. There are no hands on Daniel's clock because in the land of make-believe, you can pretend it's any time you want. Mr. Rogers was an ordained Presbyterian minister. Yes, he was. He was on the show. Now, this says 30 years. The show actually ran for 33 seasons.
Yes.
I mean, this was a hastily made thing by a few high schoolers. And Mr. Rogers, well, we've already been through that, but he died on February 27th, 2003, at 74 years old. And this song, I actually asked permission for Matt a long time ago. I say a long time ago. To do it, or not to do it, but to share the page and his song on Mr. Rogers' page. I'm a member of on Facebook, and he gave me permission. So I made a chord sheet because even though he put the chords in there for me to play it, I can't. I need to see it as it flows. So I made myself up. I typed it out and I made up a chord sheet. So we're gonna sing the Mr. Rogers song, written by Matthew Willett, about 17 years ago. 18 years ago-ish. In a minute, let's tune the guitar, because it did its thing again. Those of you who watch my videos regularly know that my poor guitar likes to go out of tune on me. Okay.
Did you electric guitar?
Not today, buddy. Every morning I'd wake to his voice, and my mom, she would give me a choice. She would ask me what I wanted to see. Mr. Rogers of Sesame Street. As for me, there was no decision. I would watch him on my television. I would sit there as happy as could be and take a trip to the land of make-believe. And as for now, my life is sadder, and I'm acting a whole lot better. When I go to sleep I cry, and all I do is ask my God why. Why didn't he take Ernie or Bert, maybe even Martha Stewart? My God, what I'm trying to say is why do things have to be this way? I would watch him in his cute little sweater, and he always asked me if I'd be his neighbor. 2 goldfish were hungry little rebels. They'd make me laugh as I ate my fruity pebbles. I was sad, it only lasted 30 minutes. That was all, and then it was finished. Put my bowl in the dishwasher and thank my God for Mr. Rogers. And as for now, my life is sadder, and I'm acting a whole lot better. When I go to sleep I cry, and all I do is ask my God why. Why didn't he take Ernie or Bert, or maybe even Martha Stewart. I got what I'm trying to say. Is why do things have to be this way? I'm not sure if I ended that right, but it's been a long time, and it wasn't really my song to screw around with, unless I already did and don't know it. But again, this isn't as terrible as you think it is. I mean, it was a fun song, I think, when Matt wrote it. I mean, Martha Stewart was in the news a lot for her embezzling and all that, and that's why I love Matt. I miss Matt a lot. He actually, some of you might know him. He wrote a book called Thoughts That Fell from a Taco Shell. And you think it's just him sitting in a Taco Bell booth, because Taco Bell was like his thing. And so I remember his siblings make fun of him because he only liked to eat cereal. Lots of cereal. We call him the serial killer. And so it played a part in the song, as you heard. We're talking about the Fruity Pebbles and everything else. Got a lot of info. See. Yeah, we talked about Daniel Tiger, and he was married in 1952, which was before any of his, I think, he was married before he ever tried to get into television at all. And there was what did I say, 1952? Yeah, because it was in 1955. There's a Canadian program called The Children's Corner. Now, he wasn't on the screen, but he was very involved in its creation and production. And that ran from 1955 to only 7 episodes, so I guess production wasn't big. And then, in his first time on screen, it was a one word, Mr. Without the E, Rogers, I got conflicting reports on this. Either 1963 or 1961. I'm not sure, but till 1967. And then in 1968, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania for PBS and ran until 2001. In 1969, there's a video, it's actually probably part of the documentaries too, of when Mr. Rogers himself saved public broadcast. Like all the, all the free stuff, the on PBS was saved because Mr. Rogers went there to this Senate hearing. Mr. Rogers said he was fat until he was about 12. He was about 6 feet tall. And this is when he hit 143 pounds, he decided to do everything he could to stay at that weight, because 143 was a very important number to Mr. Rogers, because it means I love you. 1 letter for I, 4 letters for love, and 3 letters for you. I love you. 143. And it's a big thing in the Mr. Rogers circles. He was very fond of swimming and jogging. Every child, and even adult, whether in a good place or a bad place, his voice was so calming and disarming, and you always felt at home in his neighborhood. And a lot of what I'm saying are kind of quotes from people from his memorial service. These are not entirely my words. No, there's a story about, I think it was the president of PBS at the time, whose son would come in and, say, Mr. Rogers is here. Not Mr. Rogers is on TV, but Mr. Rogers is here. He made you feel like you were part of his world when he was on TV. And it was a very special thing. He tackled a lot of different subjects, but the one I want to mention right now is racism. In the 60s and 70s, there was a big racial divide. I mean, there's always a racial divide. But, it was more prevalent, and there was a black police officer went on the program. And he was actually ordered, the production team asked for a volunteer. And this man didn't really want to, but he went anyway, because I read an article once how he said, this silly white man, children's entertainer, wanted me to be on his program, and he did something amazing. It's something like Jesus. Like, what, going to the bathroom while I'm on TV, really? He washed the man's feet. Well, I should say, he got a little kiddie pool on the studio floor, and they soaked their feet together. Then he washed them, or something like that. So just to show that we are the same. The officer went on to say that moment changed his life and his perspective. Yeah, there's a lot of mean people out there who are not nice. But Mr. Rogers always meant to show us that we are more alike than we think. And that it matters what we are like on the inside, not the outside. Make 30 plus year olds turn into adoring children when he was on. To a lot of us, Mr. Rogers was a safe haven. We didn't feel like we were understood. He could be in a room full of authoritative people and was completely disarming. And it was Mr. Rogers, what could you do? And he's in a room full of self-made, successful people. Even self-made, successful people had people who helped them, and Mr. Rogers would help them see that. There's a story when he was at some banquet or for awards or something, and he asked people to take 10 seconds to think of someone who helped them. And they all complied. He was a genuine person. What you see, Mrs. Rogers would always say, what you see is what you get. And I'm sorry, I don't know more about Joanne Rogers, except for this little tidbit, which I think I shared on Facebook. But his wife, we call Joanne Rogers, her name was Sarah Joanne Rogers, and you might recognize the name if you've ever watched the show, Queen Sarah. Yeah? He made his wife a character and made that character the queen. Loved his wife. Many world-class musicians paid tribute and loved Mr. Rogers. Yo-Yo Ma, the Japanese or Chinese, I can't remember now. But he's a concert cellist, one of the most accomplished in the world, an accomplished violinist. There's probably somewhere on here, but I'm reminded of it now. The day after he died, the Pittsburgh Symphony Orchestra, before their nightly recital, did a impromptu medley of Mr. Rogers' songs. They later did a whole concert dedicated to him, but they felt it was important to do that. He had a master's in he went to seminary to become a Presbyterian minister, but he had a master's in theology, and he is quoted as saying not quoted, but someone has said about him, he's the only human being on television to whom I would entrust the future of the world. Coco the Gorilla. Everyone remember Coco the Gorilla? She just died recently, didn't she? Relatively recently, anyway, maybe a year or so ago. When he wanted to meet this gorilla, the new sign language, and so he went, and Coco had seen Mr. Rogers on TV, and decided, she gave him a big old hug and then tried to take off his shoes, just like he does on the program. He went to seminary. They kept saying that he has a biblical script. That he took his program right out of the Bible. And when I was a young Christian, full of pride, which is not good, I was very critical of Mr. Rogers, but I realized that I shouldn't be. Because Mr. Rogers does what most Christians can't do, and that is live a godly life, lead by example. Well, we can spout off theology and we live as best we can, but we don't really exemplify what Jesus in the Bible says. Mr. Rogers did, probably because he was on television, but without ever ever bringing verses, Bible verses into it. Instead of talking about them or quoting them, you can quote all you want. If it's not in your heart, you don't really live it. It doesn't mean anything. The Bible itself says that. If I can speak or sing with the voices of angels but have not love, what am I? I'm worthless. Mr. Rogers exemplified his faith in the most impactful way. Jeff Erlinger went on the show in 1981. He was a paraplegic boy. And they sang It's You I Like. And that song, whenever he sings it, it's custom made because he talks about something that is relevant to the person usually when he sings that song. Jeff Erlinger was at the funeral in 2003, but died shortly thereafter. Oh, I don't know if I wrote that down. I probably didn't, but he died shortly thereafter, I think at the age of 35. Yeah. Anyways. And he said that scene that they filmed in 1981 is a 10-minute segment. How long did it take you? It took 10 minutes. A lot of reactions you see when you say even though he was fond of jazzy, irregular style music, he messed up sometimes. And I'm sure there were some rehearsed, and they tried on purpose to get things right. But a lot of reactions you see him make are real. I mean, that was part of the magic of the show, I think, was most of it was one take. They just did it. One thing, he didn't say children and adults, kind of condescending. He said little people and big people. He didn't like fanfare. He didn't like being bragged about or on. And there's another story they tell this memorial service about when he went to a children's play, and they knew he was coming, but they didn't know, they couldn't see him. So one kid stops the production. He's like, "Hey, where are you at, Mr. Rogers?" He and his wife were so humble. They just left. They just went there. A lot of people would say, he got his show right out of the Bible and modeled it after heaven. I can't say I disagree. There was a little house in the Netherlands in which he would go to write his songs and scripts and stories. A lot of people think that God was the architect of Mr. Rogers' vision. And there's we'll skip that one. Mr. Rogers was actually named for his grandfather. His mother's father. And he gave, which became his middle name, Fred. Jonathan, not right now, please. It became his middle name, Mr. Fred McFeely Rogers. Fred McFeely was his grandfather. And he took that middle name and gave it to a character, and while people have done it was just a name to him. People have done stupid things. And he said, if I had known people were going to turn and make it dirty, I might not have named him that, but it was for his grandfather. He was so shy, but so magnificent and great of a public figure. He had as one of the women at his memorial service said, he had a magic, but not the magic of trickery or entertainment of magicians and actors, but love and trust. There's a story she tells of a non-verbal autistic boy who would listen to the show and would try to sing kind of in a weird type of almost language. The only sounds he could make. I've met kids like this. And this is the only time he ever tried to express himself verbally. And one day, while he was 5, he actually spoke as well as he could, but was very clear that he was trying to sing "It's a Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood." This was a barrier broken. This boy who couldn't speak except in unintelligible noises clearly was affected by Mr. Rogers. He was always open and honest, non-threatening. He was never condescending. Talk to us as we are, not as others see us. The line, sometimes, between the fake and the real is often blurry, and it's not very great for children, but creates false standards and expectations. Mr. Rogers helped create a real world to feel safe in, and a make-believe world to escape to. I guess that's something I've never lost. I still use my imagination quite a bit. Usually I'm in something related to Star Trek. And how to tell them apart. He didn't focus on our differences, but on the things that make us the same. And the need that makes us to make us feel special or accepted. You see, God, Mr. Rogers made us all feel special. Not in the arrogant way, like I'm special, I'm better than you, but that we each have value. We each matter for who and what we are. And untuck it. I'm going to pause. We're going to pause there really quick. Not yet, buddy. That song's coming up, okay? I'm going to try. I had to watch the whole memorial service, not that I didn't want to anyway, to find this song, because I tried to look it up. But all the websites, all the articles, nothing mentioned what Mr. Rogers' favorite hymn. Well, I mean, he was a minister. I would assume he has a favorite hymn. And according to the moderator of his funeral, this is it. Now, it's a very, I don't know. It's a weird song to me. I've only studied it this week, and I'm afraid I'm not very good at it, so I'm just going to do the first verse. There are 4 verses. Actually, on one video I saw, there were 6. I'm not going to go through all that. And like everything else, I would encourage you to maybe look it up. It's called For All the Saints. At least for the lyrics, because lyrics are important. The words are important. There's actually a lot of good doctrine in here, I think. Good message, anyway. So let's just try to at least get through one verse. And then I'll finish up with my facts and anecdotes about Mr. Rogers. For all the saints who from their labors rest, who thee by faith before the world confess, thy name, O Jesus, be forever blessed. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Alright, just one verse of that. I didn't even do it right. But we're gonna switch books again here. We're gonna finish up here, and then my buddy and I are gonna. Well, I got another page, but so we were watching, you know, in the "It's Such a Good Feeling" song. The song closes the show out with he does the snap thing, and me, Jonathan, and Mr. Rogers all did it at the same time, and he's like, "Snap, Jinx," and I thought that was funny. Anyway, Mr. Rogers was goofy and fun-loving, and he loved to laugh, especially at himself. You know, real reactions. I already talked about that a bit. And, you know, trying is all that mattered to some people. He addressed racism, as we already talked about. Divorce, love. He loved to be and share himself. And he was a composer, a minister, author, a puppeteer, a brother, husband, father, grandfather, godfather, a neighbor, and a friend. He showed us strength, courage, faith. He lived what he taught. He also taught us tolerance, love, support, compassion, acceptance, and understanding. That was the big one. And he helped us deal with death, failure, divorce, sickness, disabilities, anger, making mistakes, and even maybe going to the hospital or the dentist. He helped children grow in healthy ways. He had a reassuring authority about him. When he died, hundreds of thousands of letters, whether people were 5 or 37, wrote to the studios. His principles are still sound. He wants us to discover something new, listen to people's stories, sing, take time to be generous, imagine, and feed the fish. Little anecdote about the fish. Blind girl once, probably with help, wrote Mr. Rogers that she was concerned about his fish on the show and that she would like to know when they're fed. And so after that letter, about 95% of the time when he remembered, he would always say, feed the fish, or let's feed the fish, something like that. He needs to be heard. Now much more than ever. And that was in 2003 they said that. Think about now. I think if our world leaders, which shouldn't be leaders, they are our representatives. But if these people who are supposed to lead us would be more like Mr. Rogers. And as a soldier, I know that sometimes you need soldiers to do their job, but if our leaders were more like Mr. Rogers, we may not need them to do their job so often. Everyone has value. Just like Jesus saw value in everyone. Jesus himself talked with the people that the people of his time wrote off. The hookers, the tax collectors, the lawyers, the sinners. Those are the people Jesus consorted with. And there's a portion of the Bible, I can't remember where it's found, but God is rewarding someone and said, you saw me naked, tired, afraid, and hungry. You would add to that, you saw me discouraged, afraid of the doctor, afraid of this and that, and you helped me. And the man answers, Lord, when did I see you hungry, afraid? When? He says, when you did it unto the least of these, my children, talking about actual children, you did it unto me. That was the hallmark. That was the banner of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood and his program and everything he did. He has a favorite quote from a book called The Little Prince. What is essential is invisible to the eye. The intangible things that actually matter. Hope, love, and reassurance. He thought life was a journey and it was the little things that matter. He didn't think of himself as a big figure, as a star. He was humble, and he did the best he could. When he was diagnosed with stomach cancer and scheduled his ill-fated surgery, he said, well, we are on another journey. And that, we could go on forever about Mr. Rogers and what he's meant to a lot of us, and how even some of the toughest of us have gotten something out of Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Now, Jonathan and I would like to close out this video, and I know I started this video by changing. I'm not going to be able to stop it by changing back like he does, but I thought that would be a good touch. We're both wearing our Captain America sweatshirts, by the way. Jonathan's very happy and proud about that. So I'm going to do a little intro. We've had a lot of fun with Mr. Rogers over the years. I love his message, and I hope it continues through the ages. It's such a good feeling to know you're alive. It's such a happy feeling. You're growing inside, and when you wake up ready to say, ready? I think I'll make a snappy new day. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that I'll be back when the day is new, and I'll have more ideas for you, and you'll have things you'll want to talk about. I will too. And just like Mr. Rogers would say, you make each day a special day by just by being you. There's only one person in the whole world exactly like you, and that's you, yourself. And people can like you exactly as you are. It's such a good feeling, a very good feeling. The feeling you know that we're friends. So long, guys. I'll see you next week.